Hey guys, and welcome back to another vlog. Well, this is going to be a really good video. It really is, and it was inspired by one of our viewers. And let me read the comment to you, or the request. Kevin, can you please talk about a story where you actually saved lives, similar to the one where the victim was appreciative for what I did, for the lugs, L-U-G, I guess, nuts, balls, you had back then to stick your neck out for people that I didn't even know. And that one came from Nathan Brodeur. Is that right? Brodeur. Thank you, Nathan. It's a pretty good question. And yeah, I have plenty of them. Okay. So in this group of videos, I'm talking about when I got out of prison and all the three cases that I worked. One had to do with me being hired to murder someone. And yes, that guy his name was Lewis. And he was very appreciative of me. I got to meet him at the grand jury. And then later on in life, I got to speak to him. And he told me about, he's holding his granddaughter or son, I forget which one it was. And that little baby wouldn't be there if he was murdered some 30 years ago back then. Now it's 50. I'm going to be talking about, we already did 3 of my stories when I got out of prison. And you guys just saw that. We're in 74, 75 right now. I'm out, no, or 75, I'm out. So let's talk about the most dangerous assignment I had to do. And it's about this guy right here. Robert Eshin, convicted of murdering 3 people with a little help from me. So this is just so unbelievable. Thank God I got newspaper clippings and everything else, and even a magazine, which wait till you see what I do in this video. Now this is gonna be a little long. Instead of me blowing my horn trying to say how cool, talented, and what a big pair of you know what I got, I'm just gonna let somebody else do it. Okay? So the 4th case that I had all hit me at once. Actually, there was 5, there was 6, there was 7 murders I was involved with when I got out. As a 21-year-old kid that never did anything like this before in his life, never took an acting class in his life, and that's what this was. What I did as a confidential informant, paid confidential informant, not a snitch and ratting somebody out, I was an actor. But unlike an actor who has a script, who has a movie director, who has everybody, a whole team of people around them going, okay, this is what we want you to say and do in this scene. I didn't have that. And if my first scene wasn't my best, I would get whacked. So that's the kind of pressure it is being a paid confidential informant, fucking with the big boys. And to tell you the truth, I was barely a man when I came out. When I came out of prison, I was 21 years old. So I was asked to do the single most dangerous job that just fell into my lap. And you know what? And speaking of things falling into my lap, I think the most interesting thing about my life story is how is it possible that one person over a 40, 50-year period of time can be thrust into so many big, high-profile cases. It's not like I was in the mafia and all these people were doing crimes and I could snitch. These are people from all over the place. This is just unbelievable. So what was the most, let me tell you, I can look back now 50 years of my career being a confidential informant from 1975 to date. Not that I'm working any cases now. The two most unbelievable cases that I ever worked was Roy DeMeo, where we actually, and now this is 2023, when I went out and I was bugged about that car. I was bugged about his car. Knew exactly where it was. I could throw a rock at it and hit it. I knew it was hiding here in plain view in front of thousands of windows in Midtown Manhattan. It was there. And I want to tell a story. Let's just stop right there because I digress, but I want to tell this story. Somewhere in the this would only affect somebody with a conscience. You know, this guy without conscience, this guy without conscience, and a lot of the other murderers that I dealt with. In order to be a murderer, you have to be without conscience. One time, I was in Queens and I was in a truck. I think I was moving somebody and I was in a truck, high up in a truck. And there was some construction work. So everyone that entered the 59th Street Bridge on Crescent Street had to take the lower level and the outer level. So there was something going, I was forced because I never used to take the outer level over 30 years back then. Because I never wanted, because every time you go over the bridge on the outer level, you could see the shore where the shore meets the river, but further back because you're in the lower car. But this particular day, I should have did a video on this. This particular day, I was in a truck and I was the passenger in the truck. And we took the outer lane of the 59th Street Bridge on the lower level. And the bad thing about going on that lane is if somebody broke down or somebody had an accident, you were screwed. There was no way to go around. You were locked, trapped in that lane. And one day I was trapped. I wasn't the driver and I was higher up and the traffic stopped. Where did the traffic stop? Right where the shore meets the river. And I'm looking down, and if you guys go back, you'll hear me say it was 80 feet offshore, 35 feet north of the 59th Street Bridge, Queenside, which is exactly where I was. We were stuck there for a half hour. And where do you think my attention went to? I could look down and I swore I could see the car. I don't know if it was low tide, slack tide, tide going in, tide going out. And I'm looking and I'm rubbing my eyes and I'm looking and I could see the damn car. I could see that car and it haunted me that I put another human being in the water. And it just like, of all the places to be stuck and to all the places where I was actually in a truck and I could look down and see right where it was. And we were stuck in traffic parallel to right where that was. If that's not an act of God, I don't know what was. And I want to say that this was in the 80s. This was in the 80s, 70s. So maybe it was 10 years. Maybe the sun was still shining off its bumpers. Because don't forget, it was only in 17 feet of water. And from that point on, that fucking thing haunted me. Who it was and how could I tell about that story without incriminating myself? And then, of course, 50 years later, I did just that. And we're going back in April. So I digress. I'm not gonna, but that was a very, very interesting story. So sometimes it's not easy being Kevin Ma. Sometimes I'm put in situations where I know God had his hand in it. Divine intervention. Pushed me here, pushed me there. I don't know. So I was going to do a video on just on that, but I did it now. So maybe I will later on. But so that case, I think, I don't know which case. Sometimes when I think of that case, I think that's the most interesting story that has never been told. And the story continues from 1974 to 2023, and then again to 2024 when we go back there. So that's a very unbelievable story that we found the car, we identified it with its steering wheel and its dashboard, exclusive only to that year, make and model car. Holy shit, like what the hell? Right where I said it was, because don't forget, the sonar and radar and all didn't work. It didn't work because it was so crushed down into the ground, it didn't give a 3D image. It didn't work. It was only because I forgot to turn the lights off, but I digress again, so I don't want to get into that story. So that story is one of the most unbelievable story. Number one, because of who the players were, Roy DeMeo, and who we believe in there was Nicholas Minsucci, and of course Kevin Mark. Those three people came together in 1974. But then when I talk about this next story, is the most dangerous thing I've ever done, because this guy over here was one badass. He was a mob hitman. I don't know. Don't ask me what family he was from. I don't know. So I get out and I do those three jobs. And man, I'm patting myself on the back. Everybody's going, this kid is like, oh, how did he do that? And then we're going to get into other crimes that I did and I stopped and stuff. But anyway, I wanted that. What was the name of the guy again? Nathan. I want to thank you again, Nathan, because I didn't want to hit my viewers with a whole bunch of unbelievable stories, but too bad. Too bad. That's what they are. Too bad. And then here I have to go blowing my own horn. Look how cool I am. Look how talented. Look how fucking boy. You know, I'm going to let somebody else do it. And actually, it's going to be my daughter. So, again, I'm sorry if I'm rambling on. All these stories come at me at once. But stay tuned, because this is going to be an unbelievable story. So, I come out of prison and I meet this beautiful girl. Her name is Elizabeth Escher. Here she is, right here. And that good-looking young stud there, boy, I was good-looking. But, oh, I digress again. But anyway, I meet her. And lo and behold, yeah, her husband's in Rikers Island facing 3 murder charges. Contract killing in a Queens garage where he whacked 2 guys in a body shop. And then another murder, which was the Hodge murder, which took place in 1974, where he murdered a famous musician. I forget the guy's name, but I'm going to do a video on that. His name was Hodge, and he was murdered in his house on West End Avenue in 1974. You can Google it. His wife's name was Donna Hodge, and of course, it's all in that book right there. So he's in jail on the 2 cases in Queens and the Hodge murder, where he tied the guy up, made it try to look like a home invasion, and then he was supposed to have raped Donna. And why would they say that? Because their whole plan was to whack him. She would inherit all his money, and then they would sue the building, the apartment building, because it had security, a doorman. Anyway, so again, I digress. So it was a big, they were big. So anyway, I wound up getting involved with this. So What was the most dangerous thing I've ever done? Well, it was to seduce a mob killer's wife to get information to help the district attorney in the Manhattan case. Because don't forget, I worked for the Manhattan DA's office, and that's where the Hodge murder was. Okay. I still can't believe this. So now I'm 21 years old. Now I'm playing with the big boys. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any training. I'm not a detective. I just have to be a good actor, right? So my mission was to seduce a mob killer's wife to get evidence to help the DA, Alan Sullivan, who was prosecuting this case in Manhattan. Now he was their number one homicide DA. In fact, in later years, in 1980, he was the one that put the guy that murdered John Lennon, successfully prosecuted him. I forget the guy's name, but he's still in prison, that guy, the guy that murdered John Lennon. Alan Sullivan was the one that prosecuted him successfully, just like he prosecuted him successfully with a little help from me. So I'm not going to get into, I already did a video on this way back 3 years ago. I'm not going to get into how I did it. But okay, so now 1996 comes, my book is about to be released. And what happens now, publishers will send out like a junket to all the media, to magazines, to see if they'll take what's called the first serial to my book when it gets published, which was February 1996. So they send all these junkets out. My publicist sends all these copies of the book, sends them all out to get me on TV to promote the book when it is released. Okay, so that's what happened. Then we get a call from, this is like unbelievable. My publicist gets a call from none other than Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner from Playboy magazine. Wow. Hey, I read that book and I want to do first serial. Now, first serial means their magazine will do a whole layout about me and publish that in their March 1996 edition, because it's 1 month ahead, so that the first serial comes out at the same time the book is released. That's what they do. Well, I was like, holy crap, I'm going to be in Playboy magazine. Wow. Put the brakes on, not so fast. Now we get a call from this other guy. His name is Bob Gucciani. And who is Bob Gucciani? He's none other than the editor and CEO of Penthouse magazine. And he wants to do first serial. So Bob and this is like so fucking unbelievable. But when I show you, you're gonna say, "Oh shit, that he's not lying." And who's Hugh Hefner? So Bob and Hugh Hefner now, Playboy, even to this day is and I think it was also, I think Hugh Hefner's daughter was involved in the negotiations. I think she was an editor or something. I don't. She later took over the business, and then of course he died, as did Bob Gucciani. They both they died. So now now Bob Gucciani and I'm so bad with names. What's his name? The Playboy guy. You have to. They're battling it out. And how are they battling it out? Well, you have to pay me and the publisher. I mean, me and Kips get all that money. Now we get all that money. And so they're battling it out. And I'm going, just let's go with Playboy. I really didn't want to go with Penthouse, but that's exactly what happened, because Penthouse paid, I think it was either $18,000 and Playboy wanted to pay $8,000. And both came up, and then Bob just want like 10 grand more. I'll pay 18,000. I want that first cereal. And sure enough, he got it. Right over here where it says deadly mission, seduce a mob, kill his wife. Wow. How many guys can say they were on the cover of Penthouse magazine? And no, that's not me and Drake. How many people can say that? So they did a spread. And so what I'm going to do now here, now let me show you this. So just like any centerfold, they did a centerfold about me. I don't know if you can see this, where it says deadly mission, seduce a mob, kill his wife, written by none other than Charles Kipps. So this is me, and I'm going to get to this part of the story, where the mafia hitman is over here, and this is me. That's a very good likeness, of course, with my red hair. And I'm in prison visiting him because he wants me to take care of his wife while he's gone. And he's thinking he's only going to do 4 years. And this, of course, is Beth. That's the thing. And now it goes on. Now you can see this. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, where it says Kevin Marr. Okay, so I'm going to have my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, read this before anybody says, how can you give your daughter a dirty book? Well, I have everything paper clipped off so that when she reads it, everything is censored. Everybody out there, before I get Child Protective Services on me. So, so all of these things, I put the little thing there so she's not gonna see. I now converted this magazine to a G rating. Okay, so these are the two most unbelievable stories in my life: the Roy DeBeo story and the Beth Eschard, Robert Eschard story. So I can't read all that stuff. I'm never going to be able to do that. So I'm going to have my daughter now read this. Now, there's 8 pages. I mean, this was like a full, this was very unusual, even by both publishers. And one of the agreements were not only monetarily, why we went with Penthouse, or they went. I I didn't know what to do. I wanted to be in Playboy magazine because they have a forum, and as did Penthouse. They had this forum, so I just wanted to be in that one. But the powers to be, Bob Gucciano said that we're gonna do this right. In fact, you know what? We're gonna let the author of my book, my biographer, do it. Full license, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do, as long as everything is the truth and be verified, we're going with it. Go right ahead. So here's the story, instead of me blowing my own horn, of my interactions with this guy and this gal right here. I think that's the only picture I have of her. Beth now she's even alive. I don't even know. She would be 78 years old. She was 8 years older than me. She was a cougar back then. But Kaylee, are you ready, sweetheart?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So here's my daughter reading the Penthouse magazine article. Go, honey.
Kevin Marr doesn't use search warrants and can't be bothered with Miranda rights. Over the past 20 years, he has been employed by the New York Police Department, the DEA, the FBI, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and many other law enforcement agencies. He is a one-man posse, a modern-day bounty hunter, a troubled teenager from a broken home. Marr started out stealing cars, first for fun, then for profit. At 16, he was the wheelman in a bank robbery. In 1971, he stole a car and led police on a high-speed chase from the Bronx to the Catskills. Marr was arrested and charged with grand larceny and, because he blasted through a roadblock, the attempted murder of a police officer. Since he previously had been identified by a bank employee as the driver of a getaway car, police dangled a reduced sentence in front of Marr if he would give up his accomplices. But Marr refused to rap. So, at 17 years old, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Soon after his release in 1974, Marr found himself in trouble once again. Enter Detective Sergeant Jim Doherty of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Doherty felt sorry for Marr and wanted to help the 21-year-old offender avoid another jail term. After the fact, and only as payback for Doherty's act of faith, Marr offered to aid him on a couple of cases. As it turned out, Marr was very good at undercover work, and he helped Doherty bring in several felons. The FBI heard about Marr's exploits. It offered him an assignment and a paycheck. Thus, Marr began an extraordinary and dangerous career as a paid informant. Because of his high success rate and due to his bounty hunter style compensation, Marr quickly became the highest paid freelance cop the Justice Department had ever seen. His payment for one bust in 1989 was $126,000. Kevin Marr is 41 years old now and lives somewhere in New Jersey. In the following excerpt from my forthcoming book, Cop Without a Badge, Carolyn Graff, we join Marr in 1975 as he is about to be released from the Greenhaven State Prison. His earlier encounter with Detective Sergeant Jim Doherty and his jailhouse camaraderie with Greenhaven inmate Brian Malise have set off a chain of events that ultimately will lead to Marr agreeing to the most dangerous job imaginable, romancing a jailed mafia hitman's wife. One acquaintance Marr made at Greenhaven was Brian Malise, a 36-year-old man with movie star looks and a dancer's body. One might expect a pretty boy like that would have a hard time in prison, what with sex-starved inmates roaming the cell block. But that sort of thing didn't seem to worry Malise. He was friendly and open, almost too friendly, Marr thought. Marr and Malise, who had an arrest record that went back to 1959, often would share a table in the cafeteria. According to Malise, he had several jobs in the financial community, and it was at one of those jobs that he met his wife, Alice, who worked for American Express. After he was sent to prison in 1970, the only person to visit him was Alice. They were married in a jailhouse ceremony in 1971. I married the fat bitch for her money, Malise sneered, and to build a case for my parole. Malise shoved a fork full of mashed potatoes into his mouth. She's a fat, fat, fat pig, Malise ranted, potatoes oozing from his contorted lips. On the morning of June 12, 1975, Marr looked up to see a corrections officer peering into his cell. The hack-eyeballed Greenhaven mate number 21628, and then said the 3 words Marr had been longing to hear for 6 weeks.
Pack it up.
Pack it up.
That's when you know you're going home.
I'm packed, Marr said as the hack shoved a key into the lock and pulled open the cell door. As Marr continued his short walk to freedom, he passed the visitor's room, its doors wide open, and spotted Brian Malise. Hey, Kevin, Malise shouted. Come over here. I want you to meet Beth. Marr looked across the room and saw a petite brunette standing near Malise. She was cute, sexy even. Malise had mentioned her before. Elizabeth Essert and her son were staying with Alice Malise while her husband, Robert, awaited trial on a couple of contract killings. So that's the kind of woman who marries a hitman, Marr mused. You need a ride? Malise yelled. Beth here will take you back to the city. Beth smiled sweetly and made eye contact with Marr. After a moment, Marr broke the gaze. I got some guys waiting for me, Marr shouted back.
That was the detectives. They picked me up.
A couple of weeks after his release, Marr walked into his apartment to the sound of a ringing phone. Hey, Kevin, how's life out there? It was Brian Malise. Great, Marr responded. After Malise related a few anecdotes from Greenhaven, he grew serious. I'm worried about that fat bitch wife of mine. What happened? I think she spent all the goddamn money. Marr had heard Malise boast about Alice's money before, but he was never sure where she got it. Malise explained that Alice had inherited a Brooklyn brownstone from her 2 spinster aunts and had sold the place for a profit of $100,000. In addition, the aunts left Alice a valuable collection of jewels, silverware, and antiques. You gotta do me a favor, Kevin. Sure, what is it? Go over there, Melise pleaded. Check it out. Melise gave Mar the address, 24 Sanford Road in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, a quiet bedroom community that served Manhattan. When Mar arrived at the house the next day, he was shocked to see that the comfortable two-story brick home was in a state of disrepair. The glass on the large wait. The grass on the large corner lot hadn't been mowed in months, and the bricks, which had been painted white, were peeling. Alice answered the door and shrieked with delight when she saw Mar. She hugged him so hard he was embarrassed. Brian says you're going to give me a hand, Alice said, and boy, do I need a hand. Mar spent the morning mowing the lawn and clearing up the yard. During several breaks, he sat in the kitchen and chatted with Alice, learning a great deal about her. She peered through her wire-rimmed glasses, holding her ever-present cigarette, and told him of a childhood devoid of affection. Her parents died when she was young, and she was raised by two aunts. Their emotional range, as Alice told it, went from disapproval to distrust. The recollection of those years was painful. Alice's eyes misted over several times during the account. But she brightened when she recalled how her aunts left everything to her, and she smiled as she turned to talk of furs, diamonds, and designer clothes. She was a spendthrift. From what Mar could tell, she probably had spent all of her inheritance, just as Melise had suspected. And as far as Mar was concerned, it served Melise right. As Mar stood on the front porch saying goodbye to Alice, a car pulled into the driveway. A little boy about 4 years old jumped from the car and was followed by a young woman. It was Elizabeth Escher. Oh my, Elizabeth remarked as she looked at the freshly cut lawn. Doesn't this look wonderful? Kevin did it, Alice announced. The little boy stared up at Mar. You Kevin, mister? Mar knelt down. Yes, I'm Kevin. Who are you? My name's Bobby. Bobby Escher. He smiled proudly. Bobby Escher, Jr. Mar looked at Elizabeth. Weren't you at Greenhaven? I thought I recognized you, Elizabeth said. Yeah, Mar said, pointing his finger. You had on a blue bandana. Elizabeth laughed. Bandana? That makes me sound like a pirate. It was a blue scarf. For the second time, their eyes met, and for the second time, Mar felt a twinge in his stomach. Over the next month, Mar spent weekends in Fair Lawn working on the house. Alice, with that permanent cigarette dangling from her permanent smile, was happy to have a handyman around. Mar found Alice warm, friendly, funny, but the more Mar got to know her, the more he realized how ditzy she was. Elizabeth, too, found Mar's weekly presence comforting. She loved to engage him in philosophical discussions about the human condition, and she came across as well-read and intelligent.
Yeah.
Once in a while, she would bring up her husband, whom she said she deeply loved. When she insisted that Robert had been wrongly accused, Mar would just nod in agreement. Yet, Mar couldn't help but wonder how Beth could be two distinct people, the erudite woman who engaged him in scintillating conversation and, at the same time, the wife of a ruthless mafia contract killer. When he asked her about the circumstances under which she met and married Robert Escher, the answer deepened the mystery. I was a flight attendant, Beth told Mar. She recalled how, with a group of friends, she had wandered into an East Side New York bar called Patty Quinn's. There she met Escher, who, according to Beth, was dashing and worldly, mysterious and manly. As Beth went on and on about Robert, Mar cringed. He didn't want to hear about how great Robert Escher was. What did he say he did for a living? Mar asked. He said he was in the insurance business, Beth replied. Mar was astonished at how little Beth actually knew about Escher. The more he pressed her for details, the more he realized that the woman sitting across from him had entered into a marriage willfully ignorant of her husband's history. Fantasy, delusion, whatever it was, it became clear that Beth had allowed a stranger into her heart. Even now, with Escher charged for murder, Beth chose to believe he was innocent, or perhaps refused to believe he was guilty. There was a subtle distinction between the two ways of looking at the situation, and Mar struggled to figure out exactly what Beth really believed. He was either naive or in denial, which was worse. Little Bobby claimed a piece of Mar as well. When Mar worked in the yard, Bobby followed him around like a pint-sized shadow. The boy seemed hungry for attention, and Mar was glad to oblige. One weekend, Mar was in the yard when the postman delivered a certified letter from the town of Fairlawn. According to the letter, Alice hadn't paid her property taxes for 3 years, and the town would foreclose unless she came up with $7,500. Alice, Mar said after he read the letter twice, this is serious. When police called from the Taconic Correctional Facility,
Taconic.
Taconic,
Taconic, that's in Bedford Hills, New York.
where he had been transferred as he neared release, Mar told him of the tax problem. Melise howled like a wounded animal. Kevin, please, whatever you have to sell. The fat pig's furs, her jewelry, her furniture, just do it. Just save the fucking house. It's worth $250,000. Following the phone call from Melise, Mar sat Alice down and explained the seriousness of the situation. Clearly, she didn't have the money or the taxes. Oh dear, she kept saying over and over. Then she broke down into cheers, her rolls of fat shaking like jello as she sobbed. Is Brian upset? I don't want to upset Brian. With Alice's permission, Mar carted boxes of jewelry to 47th Street, the heart of Manhattan Diamond District. It wasn't easy raising the $7,500. First of all, many places were leery of anyone with fistfuls of bracelets, and when they did agree to buy the stuff, they offered well below value. Mar persisted, however, and by the end of the day, he had the money. Melise was ecstatic. Mar had saved the house. Why don't you move in? Melise suggested. You'd be doing me a favor. The offer was tempting. For Mar, living with his mother in his father's old apartment had become unbearable. Let me think about it, he said. Mar drove into Manhattan to see Doherty. I stopped by to tell you I might be moving, Mar said. Where to? Jersey. Melise found a house in Fairlawn. Mar and Doherty had previously discussed Melise. Nice guy, your friend, Doherty snickered. He killed his wife yet? He asked me to look out for her. Better not look out too good. Mar laughed. She's 500 pounds. Doherty laughed too. But there is a nice little number living there with her, Mar said. Elizabeth. She has a cute little kid named Bobby. Where's her husband? In jail, Mar answered, for murder one. What's his name? Escher, Mar said. Robert Escher. Doherty motioned to a chair. Sit back down.
He was like blown away. He knew him.
Why? Mar wanted to know. What is it? An ADA in the office here, Alan Sullivan, is working on one of the Escher homicides. You mind talking with him? Mar sighed. Sure, why not? Doherty picked up the phone and buzzed Sullivan. A moment later, the assistant district attorney entered. Although he was just 35, Sullivan was graying. Since he was also very tall and very thin, he looked older than his years. Doherty introduced Sullivan to Mar and explained that Mar had performed well undercover in a couple of tense situations. Then Doherty dropped his bombshell. Kevin's about ready to move into a house with Elizabeth Escher. Sullivan's jaw dropped. Robert Escher's wife?
Yeah.
After an intense nationwide manhunt, Escher had been arrested in Lee, Massachusetts, May 4th, 1974, and charged with a double homicide in Queens. In addition, Sullivan was prosecuting Escher for the murder of a well-known Manhattan musician named George Howard Hodge.
George Howard Hodge. That's the guy. You guys can Google him. That's the guy that got murdered. Thank you, babe.
But we know he's responsible for at least 15 contract killings, Sullivan added. 15? Mar's voice rose an octave. Sullivan left Doherty's office and returned with a newspaper dated October 14, 1973. The headline cried out, "Burglars kill musician, attack wife," and the subhead added another lurid detail, "Rape attempt fails in West Side flat." Sullivan explained that Robert Escher, an accomplice named John Hemmers, and Beverly Donna Hodge, the victim's wife, had been indicted for the murder of George Howard Hodge. Then he related his theory on the brutal homicide. Essentially, Sullivan believed Beverly Hodge had contracted Escher to kill her husband and stage a rape attempt that would make it seem as if she were a victim as well.
Okay, so stop right there. So what this article doesn't say is that this guy, while married to Beth, was having an affair with Donna Hodge. And I don't know how much, and I'm positive that it was his idea to come up with this plan to murder him, Hodge, the musician. What was his name? George, right? George, to murder him. And then we'll come up with an idea that we'll sue the building for lack of security. They let a murderer come in and rob and rape you, and we'll sue for millions. That's what the plan was. But it didn't work out. Go ahead, honey.
The motive was money. Hodge's considerable estate, which Beverly Hodge would inherit, a sizable insurance policy that named Beverly Hodge as beneficiary, and a pre-planned lawsuit against the owners of the building for a lapse in security. According to Sullivan, all of this information was contained on a tape that he wanted Mark retrieved. Escher made a tape of a phone call he had with Beverly Hodge, Sullivan explained. We believe Beth Escher is in possession of that tape. Other than the recorded conversation, there was nothing concrete to link Escher to the murder, at least nothing Sullivan felt would hold up in a court of law. Without any forensic evidence, and in the absence of any clues, Sullivan would be unable to convict Robert Escher of the brutal slaying of George Hodge. Queens doesn't have a strong case either, Sullivan said. Escher could walk. Sullivan painted a horrific portrait of Robert Escher, ruthless, sociopathic, a real monster. Marr didn't like where this was leading. Beth doesn't know anything about the murders, Marr insisted. I think she does, Sullivan countered. Sullivan stared a hole in Marr. You think you could get to her? Get to her? Was he crazy?
Okay, so by this time, I believe her and I were in a relationship. There was no get to her. It was, I already got to her. So we were in a relationship. Okay.
You want me to do what? Marr was indignant. Fuck some information out of her? Sullivan.
Now I just say F, don't say. That's what I cleared it.
Sullivan explained that he was under court order not to talk to either Escher or his wife, and that using an undercover.
Okay, so this is considered privileged information. So once a defendant has an attorney, the police or DA cannot speak to them no more. And as far as the wife and husband relationship, they can't force Beth to testify against her husband. So any information I got out of Beth was deemed privileged information for the defendant. Okay, go ahead. And if there's any more F-bombs, just say F.
And that using an undercover cop would also violate that order. But a private citizen, he said, could circumvent that legal detail.
But stop right there. But I wasn't a private citizen. I was an agent for the police. It's the same thing as a cop. It's the same thing. So he was wrong there. Alan, he was wrong because acting as an agent for the police, you are the police. Anything you do is going to be relayed to the police.
Besides, Sullivan noted, anything I get would not be admissible in court. A wife cannot be coerced into testifying against her husband. It's privileged information.
There you go.
Sullivan acknowledged that what he was asking Marr to do constituted a gray area of the law. Marr thought about Beth and little Bobby. Bobby was a sweet kid. Marr couldn't imagine Bobby being raised by a cold-blooded killer. Okay, Marr finally said. He leaned back in his chair, his body suddenly limp. He had just agreed to do the single most dangerous thing imaginable, romance a jailed mafia hitman's wife.
Okay, so now I don't want to keep going. All right, so this is where we are there. And basically everything else is another one. I mean, Bob Gucciani did let the author Kipps have, and this is where it finally ends. All of the rest of it is all in the book. You can pick up a copy of the book. So without giving the plot away, yes, I got him, and yes, he got 375 years to life. And I also got something else, something that I was unexpected, not expecting. What was it that I got? I got his wife, and I married her. And I raised Robert Eschard's son, Bobby, as though he was my own for 20 years. The marriage lasted, I mean, not 20 years. We stayed married for 13 years. And I did have a relationship with my stepson for 3 or 4 years after that. And then it wounds up that Beth was having an affair with this guy by the name of Richard O'Rourke. Let's talk about Beth a little bit. Beth was a very smart girl. She only had a high school education, but she was very smart. And she was very beautiful. This picture doesn't really do her justice. So her first job was with New York Magazine as a circulation assistant for the circulation department. And then she rose to working for the Esquire magazine. And then her final job was for the prestigious magazine called The Economist, based out of London, where she rose to being vice president of North America for the accomplishment, for the Economist. Quite an accomplishment. A little bit of a tongue twister. Don't take much to twist my tongue. But anyway, so I'm 21 years old. And look, out of all of these groups of people when I first came out, did the murders stop there? No, they didn't. And we're going to be getting to that one in maybe the next video. But so now so out of all of the stories that when my life story was my book and was presented to movie studios, they all gravitated to this story. This story, the jailed mafia hit me. It's a friggin' movie, is what it is. And I had to stop my daughter because we're only halfway through this magazine. Now, this magazine, you can still get this on eBay. It's the March 1996 issue of Penthouse magazine. I wish it was Playboy. I always wanted to be a Playboy. You know, that's not me in drag. Right over here, Deadly Mission, Seduce, a jail. Jail. I can't even say seduce a mom, kill his wife. That's what it says. That's what it happened. And so now I guess you guys can see why Hollywood was so interested in my story. Now, fast forward to 2023, July 18, 2023. I find out who Roy DeMeo was, and I was thieving with him back in 73 to 74. And he had me dump a dead body under the 59th Street Bridge, and we find the car. Holy crap. Which story is more incredible? Roy DeMeo, suspected of killing 200 people. The other guy, Nicholas Mansucci, was a big-time mafia guy for the Genovese crime family. Was his body in the trunk? Stay tuned. So, again, everybody, if these types of stories just don't blow your mind, then there is none. And that's why I get so upset when I say, how come I got less than 5,000 subscribers? All these YouTubers out there, they picked up a computer and they read a bunch of stories and do a video. They got 500,000 friggin'. The only three real interesting channels is Michael Franchese, Sammy the Bull Gravano, and yours truly. Because we lived that life back then. I'm like the only guy. Now I know this guy Testa, who used to run with Roy after. I knew him, and he became part of his crew. He's getting out, I think, this month. He's going to be in the halfway house, and then in June he'll be out. So we'll see what happens to him. But other than him, they're all dead or in jail for the rest of their life. So again, guys, you know, this story, this channel, I don't understand why nobody wants to push the button and subscribe and let's get us a larger audience, because these stories are the most interesting part of Kevin Moore's life, and I'm going to leave it there at that, is that not that I was able to infiltrate this guy or trick that guy and put that guy in jail, and is that how is it possible that all of these hundreds of cases, high profile cases, and when I say a high profile case, and I'm talking about New York City, you know that's international newsworthy. It is. So and our next video is going to be about Ronald Schofield. He was one of this guy here was bisexual, and Ronald Schofield was in jail with him. I met him, and it's all in the book. And then what happens with Ronald Schofield? He decides to commit a murder too, and I put him away as well. So we'll see you on the next one, which will be soon. So please like and subscribe. And thank you to my beautiful, I wish you could see her, how beautiful my daughter is. And did I mention valedictoria of her class? And don't ever read an F word again.
Okay.
I'll see you guys on the next one.